Ibra di testa, Tonali, gol! Sandro! Meritato! Sandro! Gol!
Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of the SempreMilan podcast. I'm your host, Ollie Fisher, joined once again by Anthony Talgrud.
What's up, guys? Glad to be back. We don't have a third this time. Madison is still a member of this podcast. I know it's been 3 weeks without him, and everyone's probably wondering what's going on there. But yeah, he'll be back eventually. So
yeah, hanging
find
by
out
a
when it
thread.
happens.
We'll see.
Yeah.
Get your applications in below.
Yeah.
That's what we'll say. But no, we should have Maddie back on soon. But yeah, it's just me and you for this episode. Troublesome twosome to recap the 2 goals that we saw last night and to preview 2 games coming ahead. So just before we dive into the match action and stuff like that, we wanted to outline our plan for the next couple of episodes because this is going to be a pretty hectic schedule between now and the World Cup. It's fair to say there's plenty of midweek games in there. There's the Champions League draw coming up later this week, which we will touch upon. Yeah, so that's exciting times. But then, for example, this coming week, we have a game at the weekend against Bologna. We're recording this on Monday. And then we play following Tuesday night against Sassuolo. So what we'll probably do, not 100% set in stone, but what we're planning on doing is previewing those 2 games in this episode. And then we'll record the next episode next Wednesday so we can recap the 2 games and then put a bit more time into the derby preview for the game that will follow those 2. So that's the plan. And yeah, we'll kind of see as we go along, with all the midweek games, etc. If we need to change our recording day. But anyway, here we are. We can recap last night's game. It would be fair to say that it's the first big game of the season in Serie A, I think. A lot of the top 6 clubs they avoided playing each other, frankly, in the first round of action. So this was the first game involving 2 sides who probably have top 4 ambitions. It'd be fair to say Atalanta are looking to bounce back after a difficult season. Most people have them in and around the 6th to 9th region this season. I was a little bit bolder on them. I've got them to finish 5th, and I'm sticking with that, with not having Europe this season. But yeah, it was our first big test, definitely, in the second round. Even though we've won our last 2 trips to Bergamo, it still never feels like an easy game. It was easy last season. We were 3-0 up, and then it came back to 3-2, and then we won 2-0 with 2 penalties to qualify for the Champions League the season prior to that. And then there's been a whole range of different results. But yeah, I mean, look, it was 1-1. And before we dive into the specifics of the game, I just want to say I woke up this morning feeling an awful lot better about the point that we got than I did when I went to bed.
Yeah, it definitely dampens your mood quite a bit, especially given the last 3 results against them. We've won the last 3, so we kind of got accustomed to that. And I think we all predicted a win on the podcast last week with Martino. So, you say it's the first big test of the season, and I completely agree. But I would argue we failed that test, even with the draw. 1 point is not enough. But the good thing is we have the hardest strength of schedule for the first half of the season, or the early portion of the season. And yes, every team plays the same teams. There's 20 teams, we all play each other. Everyone's going to play the same teams. But at the end of the day, if we're 3 points off the top with 2 games to go, and we have Lecce Cremonese and Inter has Juve Napoli, whose odds are better. So I'd much rather get the hard stuff out of the way now and know what we have to make up later against the small teams than to put all our faith against beating the Giants. And Atalanta's not really a giant, but you know what I'm saying, the harder teams. So I'd rather get it done now. Rather drop the points early. I don't necessarily want to drop any points, but if we're going to drop them, get it out of the way week 2 and bounce back the rest of the season. So it is what it is. Team selection made sense, but also I'm disappointed with it. If that, if that really adds up, like we understand why Rebic got the start. We understand why Brahim got the start. We understand why Macias got the start. They all had great games. The first match, no one thought Brahim's style was going to do well against Atalanta. They play. I mentioned it last week. They play a 3-4-2-1 3-4-2-1. They all sit back. I mean, we saw it if you counted. Every time we got the ball, there was 7 to 8 Atalanta players behind the ball. And that was before they scored the goal, and that was after they scored their goal. So it was always going to be difficult for a guy like Brahim, who's that size, who is known to not be good at drawing fouls or staying on the ball under pressure. We knew that wasn't going to work well. To his credit, when CDK came on, he had a couple moments of brilliance and then was pretty non-existent for the final 15 minutes of the match that he played. But I think someone taller like CDK would have done a lot better in that position. And I don't know. I think Giroud should have came on earlier. I think CDK should have came on earlier as well. At halftime, when we saw that performance, there in my mind there was no reason to think, okay, it's working. Let's keep it as is. I think the substitutions all came a little too late, and had we made them earlier, we might have been able to get the second goal. But I mean, I guess the only upside really is Benacer. I thought Leao had another bad game, 2 in a row. It's not to say he can't perform. He was MVP last season. We know what he's capable of, and I think that's why we're judging him a bit harsher than we were previously. But I don't know what it is. He wasn't smiling when he was on the ball. He wasn't really doing anything on the ball. I don't know if his confidence gone or if it's gone to his head. You know, being MVP, thinking, yeah, I'm the best in this league. I could do whatever I want, and then he's not trying as hard. I don't know what it is. I don't know if he's. It could be anything, but at the end of the day, he hasn't performed well the last 2 games, and you know that's hurting us because we need that player. Because obviously our right wing is not it. You know, Macias really should have had a goal early on. If he would have put it across the face of goal, I think he would have scored it. But obviously, it was a volley, split-second decision. It is what it is. That was really close. Yeah, I don't know. It's just kind of a bummer. Missed opportunities.
Yeah, on that Macias chance that you're talking about there, I've seen so many people on Twitter saying he should just side foot that back across goal for Tonali. It's really hard to do that, you know,
Especially
when a ball
first time.
reaches you, a huge, 40-yard in-swinging pinger finds you at the far post, and you've got to do it, sort of not letting the ball come across your body first time with your left foot, or you go at it with your weak right foot and allow yourself that split second more. Really hard to do, but yes, I think he should have done better than finding the side netting. On the selection, you know, we all talked about it during the week on social media and group chats, etc. It was basically Pioli's hand being forced. I think that Rebic and Brahim, with their performance against Udinese, granted it's Udinese, we know their inconsistency from last season. They made themselves probably undroppable with that. Rebic scored a match-winning brace. Brahim Diaz ended up scoring the 3rd goal, which was the actual match winner, and of course he got an assist as well. So you know, it was going to be really tough to tell them that they'd lost their place in the starting lineup after performances like that. And you could argue it maybe wouldn't have sent the right message either, because even with new signings, shiny new toys to play with and stuff, they've got to earn their spot. You know, they've got to earn that with hard work and with actual substance out there on the field. But at the same time, I think with that selection, we only hindered ourselves. I think it was fairly apparent from the opening exchanges of the game that Brahim Diaz wasn't going to work. Being sat in that role in between the lines, there was space in between the lines to exploit, but for whatever reason, Brahim Diaz was never there where he should have been to exploit it. There was some strange situations where Rebic was getting dragged out wide to the left flank, and Macias was the one that was making the late runs into the box, or one of the midfielders. Brahim just never seemed to be where there was any action. I think Darun and partially Coop -2 did a pretty good job, but you never need to do much to keep him out of the game, you know? You just need to stay within 2 or 3 yards of him at all times, and he doesn't have the physical presence. He's not explosive enough on the ball to wriggle himself out of those situations. So yeah, you just sit a number 6 on him and you can pretty much neutralise him. That's why I wasn't surprised to see him among the first changes to be made. And then yeah, we made all 5 substitutions. We changed the front 4 forwards as part of that. You know, CDK coming on, Divock Origi coming on, Leao again, but we saw him in and around the penalty box more, trying to play his essential role off Giroud, who had a couple
disagrees, but it's all good.
No. Origi's chance there at the end where
his chance was, but his heat map says
they were playing up front as a pairing, and Teo was playing as a wide left player. That's the way that it was working, but it didn't really work. Do you know what? annoyed me, and we'll talk about the goals in a second. It annoyed me a little bit that we got the equaliser with 22 minutes to go and didn't really fashion another concrete chance after that. Purely opted for chaos with the 4 substitutions, and then we scored, and there was no more chaos. It was kind of like, oh really? And they'd accepted a point. You know, they were time wasting into added time, when they really had a chance to put the ball into the box and try steal it late on. And that said a lot about them, to be honest. But yeah, you know what? Going in at half-time, a goal down, coming away after a marginally better second half performance and having got the goal, it feels like a better point. But purely said after the game, and I do agree with it, you can be happy with the performance and be unhappy with the result. I think we were a lot, during the early stages of Pioli's tenure, where we could see what he was trying to build, but the results weren't quite matching. Whereas last season we perhaps got away with some performances. But yeah, I don't know. There was a bit of rustiness there from both teams. One thing I will say is it wasn't a typical Atalanta side that we faced. It wasn't a typical Atalanta performance. Whether Gasperini has become a bit more tentative, you might argue a bit more streetwise, conservative, they were not going all guns blazing like they normally do. There wasn't an awful lot of space in behind to exploit. They pressed still with the midfield and they made things quite difficult. They pushed up high at certain moments, but they did sit deep off the ball. Mm-hmm. You know, they tried to make things quite difficult. And then in the second half, I was surprised how little they were intent on scoring, you know, what would have been a second goal, potentially to kill the game or to get themselves a winner. I think it was different from what we're used to, because they're normally dead intense.
They were very organized, especially in defense. You know, towards the late stage of the game, the final 15 minutes or so, every time we got the ball near the halfway point, we passed back to Mignon, because they had, you know, their 8 guys in defense blocking the box there, so we didn't have any long balls. And then the remaining 2 players were just pushing so hard on whoever had the ball, be it Klou, Tomori, Calabria/Florenzi. They didn't really get to Teo much, but he didn't really he never had a run either. So it was when he got the ball, they were right on him. And yeah, I mean, they played a great game. It was absolutely the game plan that was necessary to beat us. And they didn't beat us, so I guess that's a plus to take out of it, because you're right. You know, they didn't make any push for a second goal, and it was once they got the first one, it seemed like they knew what their game plan was, and they knew it was enough to prevent us to score. And then we had that moment of brilliance from Benacer. But outside of that, I mean, they really were successful in executing what they were trying to do to us. So it is what it is.
I mean, Atalanta's squad, it's probably not regarded as being very deep anymore. And we know what they've done. They've turned over players. They've sold the players that they've developed into stars in Serie A. So, you know, you can argue that they've got objectively a little bit weaker season on season. But they did have impact players to bring off the bench, like Luis Muriel and Ademola Lookman, who scored on his debut last week. 82nd minute, though, this was a moment where I really thought that we could seize the momentum in the game once and for all. And that was after Origi had kicked through Jim City as he was going for the winner. And they brought on Caleb Oakley, who is really good. You know, but he's a raw young talent. He's an Italy under-21 international
he's 18.
For a reason. Yeah, exactly. And he spent last season on loan, either in Serie B or Serie C, I can't remember. And they brought him on for what was going to be the last 30 minutes, if you include added time. And we had Giroud and Origi on, you know, to cause problems. And we had CDK with his height. And yet, we never really created anything. We never put him under any pressure. We never targeted him, having just come into the game, got to get used to the rhythm, got to try and guard 2 quality forwards. It didn't happen.
I'm wondering how much fitness is an issue for us right now, because the final stanza of the game was really long balls over the top, which just isn't our style. And it looked like, I mean, even when we had the ball, no one was making runs. They all were just content to stay where they were and hope for an incredible pass and an opportunity. But, you know, that's not how you win games. You know, we just can't do that. But, yeah, I thought, God, that Origi chance, I really thought he was about to score that. And on first view, you know, watching the game live, not the replay, I thought we had a penalty there.
Penalty,
and then I watched it, and I was like, fuck. Like, it's...
And we got a corner when it was a blatant foul.
Yeah.
But
But honestly, there was a moment.
was-
Well, we should talk about it because Teo made that fantastic save running, however far. I did not think he was going to get there. I thought they were going to cross it back to Teo's original man. I forget who he was originally covering, but I thought we were about to lose the game right there. I thought that was it. And so props to Teo. That was fantastic bit of defense. That's something that people have always criticized him for, is his defensive abilities, but he obviously knows how to defend, so good for him.
It was like the Kalulu one against Udinese. Sort of a 2-on-1, and he just timed the pursuit while cutting off the passing lane.
And it'd be really cool if we didn't have one of those every game.
Yeah. It just goes to show, though, that is one of the things about playing against the high line, is that you probably are going to get is that you probably are going to get breached once per game. Yeah. And you're relying on having an athletic back four. Maybe you can just say Teo, Kalulu and Tomori with their recovery pace to get back and make those challenges. And it enables you to play as high as we did and to dominate the territory as we did. It was Pasalic that he flew through as well. So no love lost for the ex-Milan loanee. The goal then, I think that their opening goal from Ruslan Malinovsky, who was not meant to be starting because he's apparently leaving, but nobody knows where to. So that was a bit of a strange thing in the build-up to the game. But yeah, I thought that their goal came against the run of play. We dominated the possession. We were camped in their half for the majority of the first half. We created a couple of opportunities early on, hadn't taken them, and of course they went up the other end, and pretty much with their first big chance, we failed to close down Malinovsky, and what is he good at? Scoring from the edge of the box. Took a big deflection off Kalulu. Who do we think's to blame? I know you thought Calabria was at the time.
It's a team effort. I would say Kalulu the least, even though it deflected off him, because at least he tried to block it,
He stuck his knee out, though, which I found really weird. Like, if he'd stood as he was and just let it hit him, or not hit him, then Maignan maybe saves it. But it's like he made the effort to block it and didn't get there.
So it looked to me like it was curling just slightly, I guess, inside. And I think that's why he did it. But it obviously helped the ball go towards goal. But, you have milliseconds to make that decision. And I don't blame him for doing it, because when the ball's coming at you, make yourself wide and block it however you can, obviously without your arms. But so he used his knee, and it is what it is. And Maignan was still right there. I mean, he got fingertips to it. It was a hard shot. I do think Calabria needs to do a lot better, because he just consistently is the guy who's giving away the crosses. And obviously, was it Tonali who lost his marker?
He was the one for me who was mostly to blame for this goal. But yeah.
And I would say he definitely is to blame for allowing Malinovsky to get a shot off, because you got to be watching that guy, especially we know we reviewed him all week on footage. We know he was going to go just outside the box. I mean, maybe we didn't review it because, like you said, he wasn't supposed to play, but still, you cover all your bases, and maybe that was a Gasparini thing to trick us, say, oh, he's not going to play, and then start him. But yeah, I just feel like Calabria always gives the guy way too much space on the flank, and they always get the pass off, they always get the cross off, and those are always the ones where things go south for us. For whatever reason, the midfielders, the center backs, they don't track back to get their guy when they're going from inside the box to the edge of the box. And I don't know. I mean, I just feel like we've all seen it a million times over. So that's why I put a lot of blame on Calabria for that, because it's like we've seen this play against us, and it always works, and that's the beginning of the play. So, yeah, I guess you could say Tonali has to do a lot better. Kalulu has to do better. Tomori has to do better. Everyone has to do better. But the two people the most involved in that, to me, Calabria and Tonali. And I think Tonali had a decent game otherwise, to be honest with you. It was just that one, and Calabria also. It was just that one moment. I know Stefano was giving me shit because I said, like, all of our goals this season have come from defensive errors, and he's like, that's usually how it works. But no, sometimes you just get beat. Sometimes there's just a great shot. Like, it's not always because someone forgot to track back and there was space. People create chances and put them away. So that's all that was. It seems like we're beating ourselves on all these goals we're conceding, more so than the other teams getting one better over us. So.
Oh, yeah, I mean, the Udinese game, when you think about it, set piece inside the first minute from a guy who's already scored 2 set pieces against us, and then the second goal, just being that free far post header from not tracking a man. The thing about their first goal was, as you say, it doesn't take an actual qualified football head coach to say, don't give Malinovsky shooting space in that area. You need to make sure that someone's tracking him across at all times, whoever that is. If that had been Kalulu stepping out more, that would have been probably better than where he ended up, albeit, the ball gets rolled to Malinowski. There's not so much time to react. He does do quite well to take a touch and get the shot off there. But yeah, Tonali, and you thought he had a decent game. I thought Tonali looked probably about a yard behind the pace at times last night. But in his defence, he only re-entered training middle of last week, and Krunic got injured, so it wasn't really a case of let's play it safe, because I don't think you get away with playing Pobega in the double pivot against Atalanta either. I don't think he's up to the pace of it.
Now that you mentioned he looked like a yard behind pace, I watched it with Milan Klub of Washington, D.C., and about 18 minutes in, one of the guys was like, Tonali's hurt, and I didn't see whatever happened to him, but I was like, no, he's back. He started. Like, he's playing right now. And he's like, no, dude, like, watch him. And he did limp a little bit, but then it went away. So maybe he was hurt and just knew that we didn't have a sub. Maybe that's what it was. But, I mean, overall, I still don't think he was awful.
Oh, he didn't do anything terrible, aside from, perhaps he should have been quicker for the goal. But I mean, him and Benacer are always going to be our metronome in a way. Like, they're always going to dictate the tempo that we play at. And when we talk about the transfer window stuff, I'll come on to that. But it's like if one of them is below a 6 out of 10, we just don't do everything else quite as sharply. But when those two are on it, all of a sudden the passes into the final third are being delivered quicker and with that yard better accuracy, and the passing combinations seem to be pulled off better. So yeah, that was a little bit of a tough one, but he's got a week now back in training, Tonali, and he'll get his rhythm back. And I have no doubt that he'll be back to his best against Bologna, because we need him to be, quite frankly, while we wait for some help from the market. With Krunic out he did it in training, so it is what it is. I always wonder how players get such serious muscle problems in training, but I guess these things can happen. He's out, by the sounds of it, best case a month.
Did you see
worst case
Wijnaldum?
Potentially will be left out of the Champions League squad if he's fully torn his muscle, which that's not great.
Yeah, that'd be really bad for us.
Yeah, Wijnaldum. Wow,
broke his leg in training.
Rotten
That's
luck.
crazy. Yeah,
rotten luck. Although I read that next 2 or 3 days they're gonna decide whether he has an operation on it or whether he continues with the usual conservative therapy. So I wonder if it's just like a fracture and he can kind of heal it in a few weeks.
I saw broke his tibia, but I mean, the thing is with the broken tibia, like I guess a stent, but even then, I don't know. I feel like, it's not much, and it's a shitty bone to break.
It's not great. Yeah, it kind of limits you from doing
everything.
Anything. Equalising goal then came from Ismaël Benacer, fully deserving of a goal on the night, to be honest. It was quite funny how this play came about, because it was a fairly innocuous attack, and then I saw Benacer winding up for this shot from 25 yards. I was like, please don't do this, Even though he scored important goals, like at Cagliari last season, for example, I never feel confident with him letting fly from that distance. It almost feels like he has to score surprise goals. Anyway, the keeper, Musso, parries it out. It looks like it's gone for a corner. Everyone in the box almost shuts off, but it doesn't. It kind of nestles in the corner, and Salamakers and Benacer switched onto it. Salamakers dribbles towards the box, lays it back into him. He's got a few yards of space. Terrible defending there, by the way. You've got to shut him down better. Just shifts it onto his left foot and uses the screen of bodies in front just to whip it in off the far post. Lovely technique. Don't know what to say. For all the good attacking combination play we did, it was kind of a bizarre way to bring about the equaliser.
Yeah. First off, props to Salamakers. They're doing the same shit they did last season. Macias has a good game, then he starts the next game, has a bad game. Then Salamakers comes on, does well, he starts the next game. So it means he's going to have a bad game next week, and then Macias is going to start the derby. Like, we've seen the story a million times. But he had an assist, and he looked decent overall. He still made a lot of mistakes, but the assist, obviously, the most important part of the game. So happy that happened. It was weird. It was very weird, and I don't feel confident when anyone's taking those long shots. Even Teo, who scored, countless of them. Even Leao, everyone, they still sky them, quite often, and that's what I thought was going to happen. It was strange because it looked like everyone had shut off, but I mean, that's like that's when you score, is when you catch them lacking, So it is what it is. Yeah, I guess I don't have much to say. I mean, it was beautiful curler from edge of the box, hit the far post and bounced in. So cool.
Yeah, I was kind of as soon as he scored, I was then waiting to see what the reaction was if we went and ran and got the ball out of the net and planted it on the halfway.
Tonali did.
Yeah. And Benacer seemed determined to have a celebration with the rest of the lads. Now he scored a great
get it
goal.
and I don't, because it was a fantastic goal, but come on.
I was expecting us to get the ball and go back and be like, no, that's the first goal. We're getting another one.
And I felt like they didn't have that urgency the rest of the game. Like, so often
really
we were just
bad.
kind of sitting there. Yeah.
By that, we just kept pinging it onto the penalty spot and hoping for a knockdown to pay off, and it nearly did.
Yeah.
Well, it was slightly different, but with the Origi chance.
And Kalulu had two. One of them was clear he should have had, but the other one was a little bit harder, but he still had two shots.
I think it was the free kick was a tough one, and the corner was a much easier one. He got there, he rose central in goal. Like, might have been the other way around, but yeah, either way, he should have done better. And it continues this annoying trend where we keep putting deliveries into good areas, but we don't seem to be able to capitalise on them. That's where having someone like a Botman might have helped.
And that's why I thought CDK should have started, because he's 6'4". He could have got
he scores
there
headers,
and he almost did. He just barely missed that glancing one. I think it landed on Tomori, someone right after, and shot it wide. It might have been Origi actually. I don't know, but we got close. It just, now that we talk about it, like, there's a lot more chances than I initially remember.
Yeah, there was that Giroud,
but it didn't seem like we were doing anything.
None of them stand out to me as that was our golden chance to win it. I think there was a lot of let's just put it into a dangerous area and hope for the best. And there was flicks and knock-ons and stuff, and it wasn't cohesive. It wasn't.
If we had scored first, I bet we would have won, because then Atalanta would have been forced forward, and that's how we played better. I mean, our counters weren't looking very hot yesterday either, so who knows?
No. On Leao's performance, before we do the tops and flops and stuff, first of all, I don't think his performance is as bad as people were saying. He beat Toloi a couple of times early on, drew a yellow card from him when he beat him and got dragged back. The one thing that was missing was his final pass, and we've seen that before, and it is frustrating. It is. I don't think there was an awful lot of options for him in the box when he was asked to pick his head up. But yes, maybe then you take an extra step or you deliver the ball quicker, whatever. He did almost create something out of nothing when he jinked in onto his right foot, shot from about 20 yards out, and he whipped it not a million miles past the far post. But, when he's playing with confidence, we're asking him to take those shots on. The worst thing is if he's passing that off because he doesn't back himself. So there's that. He also drew a red card. It was a red card.
It was absolutely
blatantly. Red. So, that comes, it's no coincidence, from a threatening dribble past Hateboer, and he knows he's getting to the byline where he can put in dangerous balls, as we saw Sassuolo away, for example, when he did it twice. And instead he chose to take him out shin high with his studs showing. And
late, too. The ball was already gone.
I read afterwards, and I didn't know this, it was Valeri on VAR.
I saw the ref. I was gonna say I saw the VAR assignment at the beginning, and I saw it like at the last second, and I remember thinking, "Oh, great, here we go." But then when that happened, I couldn't think of who it was, and I was like, I wanted to say Doveri, but I knew it wasn't him.
I think it was Valeri.
It was Valeri. Yeah, I thought it was Doveri, but I knew it wasn't Doveri, but I couldn't think of who it was, and it was Valeri.
What similar sounding area names.
And
another thing about Maresca. Okay, you know what? Maybe he didn't see that. He needs help from VAR there. He did lose control of the game a little bit. He tried to give
the card that Teo got was ridiculous.
He tried to give a yellow card. Well, he did give a yellow card in an attempt to get on top of the potential aggression that might occur in such a game. And in the end, he didn't get on top of it at all. He ended with 8 yellow cards and no red card when there should have been one. He gave one to Pioli for disputing an offside, which was fair enough. I think the way that that happened, he had every right to be annoyed. There's a lot of stuff about the early and late flagging and whether he should let a chance develop. That's its own discussion. But yeah, 8 yellow cards. That to me implies that you kind of lost it a little bit. Anyway, it was good to see a bit of feistiness, though. I do like games.
The fight between Teo and who was it that got the other card in that mess?
Hold on.
I can't remember, but that fight, there was no reason that should have happened. Like, because where that happened on the pitch was so far away from the actual run of play. I mean, that was basically left wing, and we were on. I think Florenzi had the ball almost at the halfway, but still in our half. Like there was no reason for it, and it killed our attack. And it was because the Atalanta player was shoving Teo, getting in his face, and Teo didn't do anything on that play. It was because
Dim City. Yeah.
that's what it was. It was Dim City, and then when he got hurt from Origi, I was vocally cheering for his demise.
For his demise as
a human, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was frustrating, and they had to. I mean, if he would have just listened to VAR and they said, okay, yeah, like there's no foul here, and then he's just getting in Teo's face. Like the problem is, we know who Teo is. We know his history. We know how he behaves. Like there's a chance he did something a little shady or said something that was going to piss him off. Like you don't know, so you assume, given his history, that he was involved in it. But all they had to do was just look at it. When he's talking to him, it's not like the VAR chief can't talk to him during it. He doesn't have to say we have to review this. He could just say, like, because he's saying like, "Yo, I'm not over here. I don't know what happened," and all they have to do is check it while he's handling, and be like, "This is what happened."
Yeah. There's some talk of the. You've probably never watched rugby, have you?
Actually, I have, but rugby sevens, World 7, is that what it's called?
Well, basically, they have a video referee in rugby, and you can hear everything that they're saying to each other, even on the TV broadcast.
Mm-hmm.
So there is talk of that actually happening in football. So there's some transparency between what's being said, but that will probably only be for formal VAR reviews. I'm not sure how I feel. I don't really mind. I'd rather the system be used properly than us hear it. You know what I mean? I don't want to hear incompetence. I think that would make me even more angry. But yeah, anyway, we'll do tops and flops and then move on to the previews. Now, my top, I don't know, it's going to be the same as everyone else probably, but it was Ismaël Benacer.
Yeah, that's who you got to pick.
He recovered. I think he recovered the second most balls of anyone, and he had the most duels of anyone on the field. He had 2 shots on target. Obviously, one saved, one went in. And he dominated. If he'd have just had an average performance, I think we might have been overrun down the middle a little bit, especially with them playing a 4-2-1 rather than a 4-1-2, if that makes sense, in front of the defense. Yeah, he was good.
Yep, just going to echo that, honestly.
Yeah. Maybe a bit worrying that there weren't too many other candidates, even potentially someone off the bench to come on and add a bit of a spark. But, is what it is. Early season sluggishness, we can put it down to perhaps. Flop of the match, tough one, really. I'm going to go with Brahim Diaz. I think there's a few candidates for players who didn't do anything absolutely catastrophic, but just weren't there. And if they had have been there, then we'd have looked a lot better for it. Brahim Diaz, for me, he just failed to follow up a good performance in the first round. And again, when you're playing without a 10, without that presence down the middle, without the person to create the space for everyone else in the attack, it just makes everyone else's job harder. I think Macias is a decent candidate. You could maybe say Rebic as well was had his steel toe caps on again and didn't have the same technical prowess as the first round. Liao, I suppose you could also say. But yeah, I'll go with Brahim, and I think it's going to be time for CDK to start against Bologna.
Yeah, I'm kind of cheating. I'm just looking at the ratings here, and Rebic had the worst, which I think is mainly because of the yellow card he got. I don't think his performance was worse than the others. And then Macias and, oddly enough, Kalulu and Mignon are all tied for second worst, which I don't necessarily agree with Kalulu or Mignon. And then Brahim is right there. Brahim had a 6.4. The other 3 had 6.3s. Rebic is 6.2. So it's all close, I'm going to say Macias. I think it's tough because he had that chance. And honestly, it's really good to even get that shot off first time with a 40-yard cross from the opposite end of the pitch. So that alone deserves some praise. But the fact he's hit it towards the side net when typically you want to put that to the opposite post, at least in my opinion, I think you have better chance there when the goal was Muso's their keeper, right? Muso was basically right there on near post. So even if it was on target near post, it was getting saved. So I think out of the 3 shooting options, I think he picked the worst one. So
Yeah, also, if you just put it on target, anything can happen. Rebound, keeper doesn't quite get there.
Between his
Anything.
legs, something. Yeah.
I think that's a fair shout. We need those attacking players to click, because after we were saying last week, we just got 4 goals without Leao, we're absolutely fine, and all of a sudden it's back to, well, we don't look at cohesive,
and it's just frustrating again that all summer, the last 2-3 seasons, we've been saying we need a right winger. And we're coming up with these makeshift solutions. Macias did a job last year, and I was really happy with him. But no one expected much more than that. I mean, I said his potential was 5 goals, and he got 6 in all comps that season, or 7, something like that. Very close to it. And he had a great preseason, and I think that hurts us as a team, him having a good preseason, because now the manager's thinking maybe we're good, and we're missing out on this very, very, very low money ZH deal. I mean, they're saying 8 million euros. Like, when are you going to find an opportunity like that again? Like, there's, especially from a team like Chelsea, who's not even utilizing their wingers. They're playing some weird formation every week. So it's like, take that opportunity that's there. We're talking about market opportunities. Take one, It's like, that doesn't complete our team, because I think we do need another midfielder and maybe another center back, just because of the how close the games are in our schedule. But really, I don't think a center back is priority. And unfortunately, I think that's the one we're going to go for. It's just weird that right wing has been ignored for so many seasons in a row, when it's always been the glaring spot. I don't know. It's frustrating. And we lost a winger. We got rid of Castillejo, who, he was not going to play, but he did his part last season. He helped us win 1 game. Now we don't have that, and I don't know. It's frustrating, because we're seeing the same thing. Macias, bad game. Salamaker's next game, he's going to have a bad one. And Macias is going to have a bad game the next week, and it's just over and over again. It's just this constant rotation of garbage, and every now and then they're going to do something right. Like, Salamaker's had a great assist. Macias is going to have a goal next week probably, or some dumb shit, but it's not a solution for us. We're not going to win. I don't know. We won the title with some shitty players, and I don't know.
It's not going to happen again, though.
Exactly.
One of the things that came out from the last week is Pioli said in the pre-match press conference that he won't be using De Ketelaere as a winger, and I think that was obvious. There were people that were putting him in there in the right wing in their predicted 11s and stuff, and it's like he played there, less than 10% of the time for Club Brugge, and he was preferred down the middle, either as a false 9 or as a number 10. That's what we signed him for, is that role. Yassine Adli did play a little bit more out wide for Bordeaux, but not directly as a right winger.
And why has he not been playing at all?
That is one thing that we did get asked in the questions, but we might as well talk about now. I mean, what I don't understand about it is he's had the entire pre-season to get up to condition, to get up to speed with the tactical mechanisms and stuff of the way that Pioli wants to play, and yet he hasn't played a single minute yet. Whereas CDK's come in and he played for like 20 odd minutes, despite having only been there a few days, and then he played a similarly large chunk of the game yesterday. And was the chance to get Adley out there, as well as why not play? Why not just, if we're going to do that thing where we play direct and just try and keep it in and around the edge of the box within shooting range, then Adley would have been good, and you can bring Florenzi on in for Calabria and tell him to push up to give width. I don't know. It seems strange that we haven't seen him yet, albeit you got to acknowledge the context that he's come from. Bordeaux, relegated bottom, had an awful season. His game, Adley as well, is definitely going to be centered around an understanding with the rest of the forwards, more so than being just like physically robust or anything like that. So I don't know. It's a tricky one, but I am surprised we haven't seen him for a single minute.
Yeah. We should probably preview some of these games because we're getting close here. Bologna.
Yeah, so Bologna finished 13th last season. I could have thrown a dart at a dartboard to tell you where they finished last season, but I knew it was in and around mid-table. They did that usual thing where they won a couple of games and then lost a few games and drew. They actually were in a little bit of relegation bother, I suppose, just after the halfway stage in the season, but they were never really under threat, and that's all that they can hope for, to be honest, as a club. Sinisa Mihajlovic is still in charge. I guess their aspirations will once again be to achieve a mid-table finish. They've started with a 2-1 defeat against Bologna, where they took the lead through a Marko Arnautovic penalty, and then it was a red card for Maximiano for Lazio, and then a red card for Sumauro of Bologna evened it up, and that's when Lazio took over. Di Silvestri on goal and Immobile winner, and then they drew 1-1 against Hellas Verona last night, so they're back in the mid-table region, of course. And in terms of their business that they've done this summer, well, they've lost Aaron Hickey, who was a big part of what they were, last season as a wing back. Mihajlovic has been liking his 3-4-2-1 formation, and when you lose a wing back who was as good as Hickey was at that age, played pretty damn fearlessly. There were a lot of people who wanted him to come in and be maybe a deputy to Teo for us, and I would have loved that. But he got a big money move to Brentford. So they look a little bit weaker there. They've lost Matthias Svanberg as well, who went to the Bundesliga. But they've got I think it's Nicolas Dominguez, who will step into that double pivot. Did you know what? They've still got, for me, literally just a perfect like symbol of what a mid-table Serie A lineup should look like.
Yeah,
literally, they're pretty solid, but there's nothing that spectacular there. They're going to rely on Arnautovic's goals to fire them into respectability. But they've got Di Silvestri, Medel knows the league well. I like Jordi shooting. Dominguez is good. Cambiasso is a good player. He was good at Genoa last season. Soriano knows the league well. Orsolini won't be in this game because he got a straight red card. So that's them a little bit shorter on attack there.
Yeah, but their defense, Di Silvestri is the only player they have as far as center backs that's over 6 foot tall, and he's 6'1", and he's also 34 years old. They got really short, really old Gary Medel starting middle center back. He's not fast, so I think we have some space to take advantage of there. I think their wingbacks are going to be our main area where they might do well as far as their defense goes. I think their wingbacks are probably their best players in that. Arnautovic has been linked to a couple moves away, so who knows what happens there. I doubt he leaves anytime soon, but unless a big money from United comes through, I know they were interested, so that might be something to watch for this week. But I'd be shocked if we lose this game. If we lose this game, there's some issues to look at, and I think it's going to be, I don't want to say we're going to steamroll them, but I think we're going to bounce back. I think it was a wake-up call against Atalanta.
Before score prediction, would you make the obvious changes to the starting 11 as well? CDK in at the number 10 role. Does Salamakers start? Change the centre forward?
Yeah, I think Salamakers starts. If Giroud is healthy enough to start, then do it. If not, I think we're going to see Rebic Leao again. And I don't think that's good because Leao hasn't been 90 minutes fit. And I think that's been forcing us to bring on Origi as a sub for him. And he shouldn't be. It should be Rebic as that sub, and Origi should be starting down the middle. And we're not seeing that. And I think that's also kind of been an issue because, like you said, Origi's starting out wide, but he's coming on out wide, but he's cutting in, whereas Rebic is cutting out because he's naturally plays a little headless chicken. He goes wide. He likes to be on the left. So I think it's not playing to our strengths the way we have it right now, and it's actually not Pioli's fault. It's fitness. So we're in a tough spot, but I do think that's probably what we're going to see again is that exact same Leao, Rebic, Origi coming out wide, Giroud maybe late. But Salamakers will probably start. I hope CDK starts. If Tonali is hurt still, maybe we get Adley in there because we know it's not going to be Krunic. It might be Pobega. I don't know if that's a good thing for us. If there is a game that Pobega could perform in, this is probably it. But yeah, I think the back line's going to be the exact same. Obviously, Mignon will be there as well. So I think the only question mark is attacking mid, Tonali, and Salamakers.
I think I can see us playing the same back 7 players, so goalkeeper, defence, midfield, and then I can see us making 2, maybe 3 changes. I've just got this feeling that he's going to start CDK and he's also going to start Giroud. and then Rebic would drop to the bench, which it's based on nothing more than gut, based on perhaps as well not how quickly he brought Rebic off last night, but I just think that this is going to be a tough game against another team that will sit deep and try and frustrate, and perhaps having an actual centre forward on there and allowing Leao to have the freedom of that flank could help us out a bit. And then, CDK with everything that he brings. And then, Messias Salamakis is a toss-up for the right wing. And it frankly doesn't matter at this stage who plays. I guess in addition to the idea of Adley perhaps being shoehorned in there at some point, which I don't like necessarily, but just for devil's advocate, could we see Florenzi again there at some point?
I think we might. I mean, he came on and obviously was an offensive-minded substitution last night.
Yeah,
but I doubt he starts at right wing anytime soon.
Yeah, it feels like we'd admit defeat if that happened. Yeah. As I say, I still like to see Brahim shifted out right wing. That's what apparently has been tried in training, but maybe it didn't work. Maybe that's why we haven't seen it yet. Okay, score prediction for this one then. I don't know how I feel about our ability to keep a clean sheet after letting in 3 goals in the first 2 games, but I think this will be our first one of the season. Who knows? Arnautovic's head might be turned. Bologna are not exactly free scoring at the best of times. They made it difficult for us last season. We drew 0-0 with them at home, and that was a pretty big blow at the time. But I'm going to say we win this 2-0.
Yeah, I think a lot of the key players that might give us trouble. Obviously, they're not risking suspension. It's only week 3, but they have been carded once or twice already. So I think that might be in their mind, like they're susceptible to getting carded, and they might not be as headstrong going into this one, just because they want to preserve it later in the season. If you're getting a card a game and you're week 3, there's an issue there. You need to preserve yourself. So you might see a little lesser activity from them, especially knowing who we are versus who they are. They might just kind of say, okay, this is a game to take it simple. We're probably not winning this one anyways, and take opportunities as they present themselves. I'm also nervous about a clean sheet, though, and I'm going to say it's a 2-0 win for us. But if it's not, I think we have some real issues going forward, and it might be a rough derby.
Yeah. And before that derby, we've got the Sassuolo game, of course, as well. Now, this one, hold on a minute. Are we at home or away?
This will be a home game.
We're at home on Saturday. We're away at Sassuolo.
Oh, you're doing Sassuolo? Yeah.
Yeah. So we're away at Sassuolo. Now, we know how easy it was the final game of last season. We can't expect to be quite as easy this time around. Although Sassuolo have had a mixed start to the season. I should probably put the banner on for that.
Oh, yeah, I guess we're hopping straight to it, huh? There you go.
Yeah, there we go. Sassuolo lost 3-0 first round of the season away against Juve. They were outplayed. There's no 2 ways about it. And then they won last night, 1-0 at home against Lecce. So that evens them up, winning a loss so far this season. It's a strange one, though, for them. And it's been like this for the last couple of years, actually, because it's like, where do they go? Are they going to be challenging for Conference League, Europa League spot? Are they going to have some kind of drop-off? If you look at their recruitment this summer, it's quite interesting, really. Obviously, they've lost Gianluca Scamacca, who's gone to West Ham. They've Raspadori gone to Napoli. They do lose players. Berardi's going to renew, though, so I suppose that's a bit of something. But yeah, they've gone out and they've brought in Pinamonti on loan from Inter, who I think might actually be a good replacement for Scamacca. But they've also got Augustin Alvarez from Penarol, who I know that we were scouting. For the attacking midfielder role, they've brought in Christian Thorsvedt from Genk, who he's been linked with some pretty damn good sides. They brought in Matthias Henrique from Gremio for the midfield. They've made some pretty, I'd say, astute signings, and they might be quite good again, but they're always unknown quantities. Eventually these kind of signings you're going to have a batch of them that don't work. And really bad.
And I think a lot of it's going to be how quickly they adapt. Obviously Pinamonti's been in Italian football, and but the other guys haven't. So they got to adapt to not only the league, but the new system. And they're not going to have an easy go at it because it's not a top flight team. Really, it's a top flight team, but not a top half team. Most of the time, or you know what I'm saying. The European spots, they're
top
not one of
7,
those. Yeah. So it's interesting. And Berardi's obviously their guy. He's content to be mid-table his whole life, and that's great for him. If he wants to look, he's going to have a statue in front of the Mapei Stadium at the end of his career, and that's awesome. But he's not going to win any trophies, and it is what it is.
Apart from the Euros, unfortunately, but
yeah,
it is what it is.
True.
Another guy they've got is obviously Hamad Traore, who Milan have been linked with throughout the summer, but never really went for. They've got Maxime Lopez, that diminutive kind of Benacer type midfielder.
How long is his suspension? Will he be back for this game?
I believe so.
Okay. He should.
Okay. So that's where Sassuolo are at. Another interesting season awaits for them. I could see them being in and around mid-table, but I wouldn't be surprised if they were knocking on the door of the European spots. I wouldn't be surprised if they got dragged into something if some of the new recruits didn't really work and Berardi maybe had a more subdued season. In terms of lineups, I mean, we're a bit far out. We don't really know what's going to happen in the Bologna game first and foremost as to what changes will be needed. So I guess we'll just do a score prediction, and I think we win 2-1. Just going on gut there.
Yeah.
Quite tough to know because obviously there's a game in between, isn't it?
And
we could absolutely blast Bologna, and then all of a sudden it's like, we'll 3-0 them again. But
I'm going to say 3-0 just for tradition's sake and the fact that Juve did it earlier already this season against them. And Juve switched because Juve started that game looking really poor, and then they switched to a more attacking style. Allegri finally admitted that his type of ball is not conducive to goals. They switched it up, and then boom, 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 they got 3. So they played a style more similar to how Pioli has been playing with us. And if we bounce back right against Bologna, then I think we could carry that into at least Sassuolo. And we know that we need to go into the derby with our heads held high. So maybe we do give our all in this one and go for that. So 3-0.
Interesting to see how he manages the rotations as well. Obviously, we're playing 3 games in like 8 days, whatever it is. And will we play full strength Bologna, rotate a little bit for Sassuolo? Or I don't know. It's going to be tough to manage the players right up until the World Cup. Let's do some listener questions then to round off the ep. Okay. Hossam Diwan asks, does anyone think Pobega should be kept or has seen any signs of growth from last season? Or do you think that he should leave for Torino in order to free up some space and some cash to get a midfielder more suited to our style?
I know you aren't the biggest fan of him. I think he's a bit better than we're giving him credit for, but I'm going to say keep him because we really don't have the numbers, especially with Krunic out for a month or more. Even if we get another person, I would still keep him just for depth.
Yeah. I'm not too blown away by him. I think people have seen it in pre-season. Excuse the siren there. That's what living in London is like. But yeah, I think we saw in pre-season that he isn't going to be the fast and technical beat a man on the dribble type that Tonali and Benacer have shown themselves to be. I also think he can look a bit slow and cumbersome. He got spun around when he came off the bench in that Udinese game and became a little bit of a meme for that. You know what? If the right offer came in, it would be strange to sell him because we've just put time into renewing him. Mm-hmm. But if the right offer were to come in, then there are the obvious temptations. It would be pure capital gain. We'd be able to put that money towards going out and getting a midfielder that we maybe really want, like a Fratesi or a Seko Fofana. Maybe then that becomes a thing that we can do. Also, you got to remember, like, as you say, Krunic out a month and he's not even really a defensive midfielder. Bakayoko might as well not show up to training anymore. I really don't think we're in a position at the moment to let him go. We'd almost have to have something lined up in advance. So I think he probably stays until January at least, and then we see where we're at. And probably the same applies to Gabia as well. It seems like his loan move won't be sanctioned anymore because keep around for defensive cover, and he's good for the squad list as well for the Champions League. But we'll see what happens with Pobega. There was actually a report today saying that Torino think that they can get him back on loan. But I think a loan might be the last thing we're looking at doing. He's had plenty of them. A 40-84, good or bad move for Milan not being in for Umtiti. Good idea not to get involved in the Umtiti sweepstakes. There is a reason he has ended up at Lecce.
Yeah.
Injuries, by all accounts, a pretty bad attitude. Hasn't been considered a top defender, maybe ever, but arguably since his Lyon days.
I think he was rated highly when he went to Barca.
Yeah,
But that was it.
Yeah, but Barca do have this thing of like ruining centre backs. I mean, Clement Longley, who's now at Spurs, he was at one point looking like something really good.
It's because they sign a great center back and then bench them for PK, every year. So yeah, I don't know. That club's on fire sale. If the pie goes to Juve, that might be trouble for us. I think there's moves to be made out of Barca and their rotating door, but none of them that are financially feasible for us at the moment.
No, I mean, obviously Depay did get linked with us again. He always tends to. Pjanic gets linked by some vague sources, and I don't really think that he'd be worth a risk on either. But yeah, it is what it is. We got a couple of questions about Redbird because the transfer of ownership should happen within the next 2-3 weeks. Officially, full 99.94% of the shares, whatever it is. And how we envisage the winter mercato to be under them. People saying that 50 million budget or whatever we end up spending this summer is quite stingy for a team that have just won the league. And under Redbird, can we expect that to be expanded on, or is it going to be another case of just minimal financing?
I think
it's really tough, isn't it? Until he comes out, Jerry Cardinale, and does an actual proper interview, having acquired the club, and he makes it clear what the intentions are. Mm-hmm. If he mentions a 3-year plan, a 5-year plan, whatever it may be, if he says we're going to bring in the best names or whatever, we'll know more once he declares it. But at the moment, there's a lot of mystery surrounding the takeover, right up to how much of it's going to be a loan from Elliot.
And I do think we were stingy because of this. This summer, like we're defending champs. You want to go out there and get the best. We spent a lot on CDK, a lot as for Milan terms, but we saw how difficult that was just to even get up to 35 million. And I think that's because we're really working with just existing funds. I don't think we were really getting anything from Elliot. I think we got a little bit. That's why we had to ask. That's why it took so long. But Elliot doesn't want to give us more money right now. They're in the middle of getting rid of the club, and Redbird's not going to spend money because they don't own the club. Something could still happen. So we're in this weird stage right now that's why we're not really spending too much. But I don't think January is the window that any club says here's 150 mil, 200 mil, whatever it is.
Unless you Juve last season and you had to spend 70
well, that's because they were looking at finishing sixth. They were struggling there. But I don't know. You might see some big reinforcements. You might see a right winger in January, but I don't know. It's just I don't look. Every new owner wants to bring in a marquee move, so I wouldn't be surprised if we do. I also wouldn't be surprised if they say that's what CDK was. If they try to say that was all them, which I don't believe would be true, but I guess there's no way to know, like you said, until Jerry gives a speech and says this is what our plan is. And he might not even do that. He might just say, I'm happy to be here. So I don't know.
Yeah, no, that's true. It's certainly been an interesting few months up until then as well, how we've ended up in the Champions League and stuff. In fact, let's talk quickly about the Champions League draw, which will be done before we go for the next episode. Who do you want? Like, what's the ideal draw? I mean, I'm going to look at the Champions League pots now and read down.
Yeah, I think
I'm finding it hard to remember.
I think Leipzig is a good one for pot 2 for us. Pulling up right now as well. UCL pots.
Yeah, there's just basically loads of teams still because the playoffs are ongoing. There's like Rangers or PSV, Benfica or Dynamo Kiev.
I wouldn't mind Atletico Madrid again. We beat them last season. I don't think they've really improved much this season. I guess I didn't really pay a whole lot of attention to their summer windows, but we seem to have their number in both games. I don't see why we couldn't do it again and actually get a win. I would not like an English club in pot 2.
Yeah.
I think that'd be really rough. Pot 3, Salzburg would obviously be nice. Shakhtar would be great. I don't want Lisbon. I think we just fold against these Portuguese teams for whatever reason.
Hmm.
Leverkusen wouldn't even be that bad. Dortmund, really anyone in pot 3 is doable, I guess. And pot 4, I would like Bruges just for the CDK narrative.
Yeah,
But yeah,
that'd
I
be
mean
fun.
anyone from pot 4. There's really no huge teams in pot 4.
No, I mean, obviously we can't draw anyone from our home country. That goes without saying, and they can't be drawn with. So, like an English team can't draw an English team either.
Right.
I think, just speaking from a purely selfish point of view, Tottenham or Chelsea would be good. Could actually go to them. They're right on the
Yeah,
doorstep.
I don't
We
want
did
either of those.
Liverpool last season. Yeah, we'd struggle with those. I think Sevilla would be an interesting matchup, and I don't think it'd be as easy as people think either. Obviously, the script writers would like us to get Barcelona because there's been some classic ties against them down the years.
Yeah.
I think like in pot 3 as well. I don't think Leverkusen, Salzburg, as you say, Sporting, I don't think they'd be easy ties either, because we saw with the Porto game, teams that play very intensely, they're a match for you. They're used to playing in the Champions League, some of these teams. So nothing is a walk in the park at all. But on strength, you're probably looking at maybe a Marseille, given how we decimated them in pre-season.
Yeah.
And then you pot 4, Celtic or Club Brugge or Rangers, or there's nearly any of those. PSV might be the ones to avoid if they were to get through. Benfica too.
I don't want Benfica.
Yeah,
I don't want any of the Portuguese teams.
No, they seem to be pretty damn good. I watched Sporting against Porto on Saturday night, and it was a really, really good game of football. They play incredibly intense, and I think we found that out when we played Porto, only getting 1 point against them. And they did outplay us at their place.
Yeah.
So,
I think we'd be up for it if we got Chelsea.
Yeah.
I think we're probably going to lose that matchup.
Seeing what Leeds did to them, though, I mean, it's very easy to rattle them.
Plus, we got a lot of ex-Chelsea guys that might want to be like, hey, you missed out on me.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't mind that. And
Tomori and Giroud, 2-0 win.
I'd take it. Bakayoko coming on for a third one.
Own goal. Yeah. So, yeah, that'll be fun. Let us know in the comments section who you want us to get in the group stage of the Champions League, be it for selfish reasons like mine, or the best matchup, or the best history, whatever. We will have a feature, actually, in our potential group stage opponents that's coming out in a couple of days, so stay tuned for that on the site. Thank you if you made it this far. Been a long one, but a good one with all the games to recap and preview, etc. Hopefully we've got a new signing and a couple of wins to talk about next week. But yeah, I've been your host, Ollie Fisher. You can find me on Twitter at Ollie Fisher. AJ, thanks for joining.
Yep. Honestly, I forgot the window was even still open. So yeah, it'd be great if we had a new signing.
We don't even have any targets to talk about. That was a mad thing. There's nobody concrete at all.
There's nothing. It's crazy. It was like we did CDK and said, all right, that's it. There's all the lost time we made up for. But yep, pleasure being here. I'll be back next week, presumably on Wednesday. So expect a late episode next week after the Sassuolo game on Monday, Tuesday, next week.
Yeah, sometime next week. Yeah. Thank you very much for watching or listening and all that. Thank you. Yeah. See you next week.
Eccolo Ante in area di rigore, Ante, Ibra, gol! Vediamo se è buono, ce lo dà buono.